Welcome back to the wrap up of our Wednesday morning Learning Happens Everywhere session. Shout outs again to our 5 panelists: Ann Taylor from the School Zone Institute, Linda Keene from Next.cc, Amy Yurko from Brain Spaces, Victoria Bergsagel from Architects of Achievement, and myself, Stephen Bingler, along with my colleagues, Baha Rajavadi and Ali Rex from Concordia Centered Community Planning and Design. Today, we're going to be processing some of the creative ideas we received from all of our polling exercises at our Wednesday morning session, followed by a 20-minute response from our panel about some of the key takeaways. So let me hand it over to Victoria, who's going to serve as our moderator for our panel discussion.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for having us back. Want to give a big shout out to Baha Javadi and Ali Rex again for always helping to make this team's cup half full. And I'm really pleased that, that you all are so positive. That really says a lot. I want to give a shout out to my fellow friends in the Pacific Northwest, but Chicago, Milwaukee, Fort Collins, Salt Lake, you're all pretty well represented. So it's really fun to see where everybody is coming from. Wow, can I say architects in the house? And quite a few planners as well. It's really fun to see how folks identify themselves. And I think we were getting better. The poll responses kept getting better and better. I think there was 185 people who responded to this poll. And you asked us what's our highest hope for the session? Well, of course, inspiration, and we sure hope that we delivered. But we also, you want to learn, you want new ideas, you want insights. So there's a lot of different things, perspectives, things like that, thinking differently. So here we go. What kind of learner are you? I'm so glad we have problem solvers, because Lord knows we need those in today's world. But you know what? The world also needs a few more mad scientists. So continue to be visionary, friends, and analyze, but do a little mad science as well. And which of these settings do you have access to? I'm so glad that people have access to parks, backyards, and kitchens. Little disappointed, you can imagine my chagrin when there was only 12% who said they have access to a body of water, but wait till you see something in a slide or two. So attributes of powerful learning: hands-on, engagement, curiosity, learning outdoors, immersive. I think that we're getting very little of that from the screen right now. And I know there are some tremendous teachers who are giving students activities to go out and do and then come back and report. So I hope that whatever the new normal is, we continue to do that. Really be immersive. Now, here we go. Where did we learn through play? The work of childhood is play, but I think the work of adulthood is play too. So look at that. Beach, ponds, oceans. So sure. But there's also lots of fun being had in the woods, in the forest, camping, and shout out to the farmers. And finally, so clear. Equity is on the top of all our minds. And I'm glad that we're addressing it as a group and as a society, that equity and access are important. And I think that's going to have something to say in the future about standardized tests. So here are your challenges, and we're up to the course. We're gonna attack that. Opportunities to learn everywhere. I love the fact that so many of you said unlimited. That you want to go deeper, and that you want engaging connections, interaction, etc. And think about sensory. Again, we need to engage our senses, because when we engage all our senses, our brain lights up. And finally, you asked us several questions. I'll just talk while you have a moment to digest this. And I will say that as we collated these and looked for the highest responses, we came up with 4 areas that we would like to discuss with you today. And they're equity, deeper learning, environments, collaboration, and what the heck is this new norm? So as we move forward, I'm going to just put the topic out there and let our fellow panelists react a little bit.
And don't forget to unmute.
Well, I'll start by saying that one of the things that strikes me about equity is the thing that I learned when I was in the second grade, which is most of my colleagues were being taught, well, we were all being taught with math, science, and language arts and social studies. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was a visual learner, and I didn't feel included. And so I think that there are a lot of people out there who learn differently than the way we're being taught. And so I would stand up to say, you know, we need more equity for the kind of people who are visual learners, musical learners, hands-on project-based learners, and naturalistic learners, and all those other kinds of learners that Ann talked about, that Howard Gardner talked about. And so that would be one shot at equity, as far as I'm concerned.
And we now know learning is individual, and we know that imagination knows no age, color, race, income, gender, or ethnicity. And as Einstein says, imagination is more important than knowledge. And it seems that many of our schools with their silos of subjects are really looking to inculcate knowledge, when actually the world needs new ways of thinking things, new ways of learning and looking. And so equity means supporting all kinds of diverse learners, all the way through K-12 to be lifelong learners.
Also feels that one of the things that has come up in the pandemic is and particularly in large cities like Chicago, is equitable access. Maybe that's to technology, possibly it's to alternative learning settings that we showed some of water or parks. So the equity that is facing, I imagine most people on this call, has to do with providing opportunity in an equitable way, and how do we design facilities that can help educators achieve that?
Okay, and I just want to take a moment to remind you that I think there's an opportunity for people to make comments or ask questions, and to the degree that we can in our short amount of time, we'll sure tackle that. But it also creates a record for us as we move forward. So feel free to use the Q&A section. Anything else on equity?
Well, I'm going to throw one thing on the table that what Ann mentioned yesterday about, I remember when there was a slide that came up that said, you know, girls can do electronics or something like that. And I'm sitting here going like, of course, everybody can do electronics. And so whoever would have thought, or whoever might have thought, that we could segregate our learning through gender. It's just a little bit beyond imagination that not that it hasn't happened, right? But it's just a amazing curiosity. I'm delighted to learn, actually on Facebook and other places, about some of the beautiful scientists, right, who were part of the NASA program, and all of a sudden now we're finding out that they were women. And so, like, what's been wrong with this picture?
And every day we can access careers and people working in practices, men, women, young people, retired people. And we can share this idea that part of the purpose of life is having a life of purpose to contribute, no matter who you are, what color your hair, where you were born, what you like to eat for dinner. We all have something to contribute.
Yep.
There was A4LE has a group, the Jedi group, and there was a session on Monday afternoon, which some of us on the panel participated in, and some really terrific issues were raised, and I would urge everyone to participate in that conversation, because I think that part of what I found in that conversation was how far we have to go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amy. And that is a nice segue into our idea of deeper learning. what might we say about deeper learning? I see that Charest talks about the freedom to pursue one's passion, and that's what made the U.S. the greatest country in the world. So, and I think deeper learning happens when we do pursue our passions. So, panelists and/or participants, what do we think about deeper learning?
Well, I'm gonna tell a story because I like stories. I mean, you heard the egg story with Elsa, and that was terrific. And I think it's important to kind of look around and notice what you see even in your own lives and your own learning. So I'm going to tell a story because I think that there's a bit of a backlash against technology, and I find that to be a bit disturbing. I think that there's a place and time for technology. And one story is my son and his cousin were playing a video game together. They don't live in the same state, but they're best buds. They're playing a video game together, and I was listening in. They were maybe 10 years old, and they were starting to get frustrated with each other. And so I was listening in to make sure, if I need to intervene. And it turns out that they were playing this collaborative game online where you had to kind of work together to do something and get to the next level. And one of them had skills for strategy, and one of them had skills for, to jump at the right time, the more tactical things. And to be able to maneuver, but they didn't have both of those skills. And so what they did is they were getting frustrated with each other. They ended up logging out of their players online, logging in as each other so they could take advantage of each other's skills, getting where they needed to go, logging back out of themselves, of each other, and back in as themselves. And then they went along playing just fine. Now, I think that illustrates not just a deeper learning, because they were navigating this online world, but also the depth of their understanding their own capabilities and that of their co-learner. To be able to compensate for weaknesses and take advantage of strengths and do what they needed to do together. So I think that deeper learning can take a whole lot of forms, and we spent a lot of time on Wednesday talking about settings. We did not cover technology settings, and I, for one, am a true believer in the possibility of what we can even do in virtual environments.
Absolutely, Amy. And there's so much with AI and virtual reality and things like that that can really bring things home.
And what do you think about deeper learning? Come on.
Well, I just watched the Netflix Gambit, which is this chess player, this young orphan who spent a lot of hours of her time as a young child playing chess with the janitor in the basement of the orphanage. And she grew up to go on as an adult and beat a Russian and was the United States champion. And it's such an inspiration about deeper learning. Of course, she got very specialized, but it was a wonderful thing. Even a janitor can be a teacher. You bet.
That was a good series. Yeah.
Yes.
And absolutely. I'm sorry, Kimberly just said, and she played mostly in her imagination. She'd look at the ceiling and play chess.
Oh, yes,
That was,
yes, she did. That was very interesting.
yeah.
That was a teacher in a way, her imagination.
Absolutely. Okay, Stephen, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
I was just going to say that one form of deeper learning that I'm excited to see more of is, as Anne pointed out in the ecoscopy session.
Yeah.
Ecoscopy. It's this whole notion of the ecosystem and understanding that even though our tendency is to divide things up into all these segments, like math is separate than science, is separate than language arts, and separate than social studies, and we all understand that in the real world that all those things are connected to each other. So I think that I'm excited to see more, especially in some of the examples that have been given in our own panel discussion about the interconnectedness of things, and especially how the interconnectedness of things produce more life. They bring life, and some of my favorite people are people who are exploring complex adaptive systems right now for Chuff Copper and other people. And I sort of feel like that's the future. Is yes, we have all these separate pieces of knowledge, but wow, when you put them all together, amazing things can happen.
Yep.
It's
In
a
the
red,
university, we stay STEAM by design because design opens up project place-based making. And with making, it's creating. And with creating, it's communicating and collaborating. And that really deepens learning.
And I
Right.
want to add that we do have a
Exactly.
lot of architects on this call. So I think I do want to say as an architect that's especially a gift that architects have to offer. We had one of the questions were like, what can we as architects and facility planners do? And I think that's one of the things that we can do. We can build buildings, sure, but in addition to that, we can bring, as Anne keeps talking about, the sort of design thinking. Anne was talking about design thinking before IDEO ever even thought about it. But the notion of design and the studio being integrated into the learning experience, I think is a thing that architects can do better than almost anybody I know.
And Stephen, you just left us with the idea of a potential learning environment. One of the people participating asked, can you learn without schools at all? And another asks about implementing the learning environment when things are inequitable in our world and many schools don't have access to potential different learning environments because of budgets. So panelists, would you like to address those with regard to environment?
I like to cite Richard Saul Wurman's Yellow Pages. He's the founder of Philadelphia Architect and basically said that a city is where a student or child learns. It has everything that you need. So he made a whole series of yellow pages that said what you could learn from a car mechanic, from a plumber, from a beautician, from a horticulturist. And from there, people started thinking of classrooms without walls. And so that connection between the community where the learning is taking place is really key, and the individuals in the community and the activities that they have.
Mm-hmm.
So the community as a learning environment.
I think the teacher training has got to change, and it's almost like they need a liberal arts education. We need a renaissance in teacher education, and getting them involved in studying the world, the environment, as a curriculum. And we've been trying to do that at the University of New Mexico, coupling the School of Architecture and the College of Education to do interdisciplinary professional development. And so, yeah, I think any environment is a learning thing, but we do need a renaissance on our environments and putting everybody in school. Maybe one of the good things about the pandemic is that we have smaller classes now because everybody has to be farther apart, giving the teacher more time to do individual help. But maybe we don't need teachers. Maybe we need to give more power to children to do their own learning.
Right. In many ways, we kill their curiosity over the course of school. And I hope that that begins to change. And I hope that we remember that teachers are learners too. And so they can partner with community. As Kimberly says, they can, I'm reminded of, how much I hear that, well, we need to engage the teachers, but they want to practice the same old way. I would challenge that assumption. When you look at the guiding principles for High Tech High, a school system that many of us are enamored of, one of their guiding principles throughout their existence has been teacher as designer. So
Mhm.
perhaps there are some ways that we can more fully engage teachers in designing, and not just when we're working with them as architects and planners, but actually baking that in.
So I want to double down on something I said yesterday, and that is that the answer to whether we can learn without schools is, to me, a very simple one, because for almost all of humanity, people have been learning without schools. It's only in the recent years that we have invented this thing called a school. And really within the last bleep of our civilization. And so if we go back and we look at all the native and all indigenous populations and the profound things that they learned, right? I mean, not just everyday knowledge, but profound knowledge. And also recognizing that in our own country, we're blessed with Native American people who still have touch with that. We're also, I know in New Orleans, we have a beautiful population of people who came from Africa, and they still carry some of that knowledge, right? Some of that deep, deep knowledge. So the idea that we can't learn without schools is, I think, a misunderstanding, and it depends on what we want to learn. And I think that there's a lot that we're missing out on by trying to learn a little too much, too fast.
I think it's probably for me, it's about, well, what do we want to define? How do we want to define the word school? So some, we could say a school program, a school building. There's a lot of definitions, and I think what we're I think it's important to make that distinction. It is, the school building is really the context, a particularly defined context for a school. It's not the school. What the school is, I think, is more about what's happening in that building. So do we need school, and is one question, and do we need a school is another question. And, I think it's a tiny distinction, but it's actually quite important. So as Pam says, schools represent things. It's not just about teaching and learning. It's about the values of a community. It's about, it's about students feeling, knowing, children of a community knowing they're important enough to warrant the investment of a community on their behalf. I mean, there's a lot more to it. So Pam, thank you for that question or statement. I think it's more than a building. And if we say school, and not limit that to the building itself, and instead have it incorporate all these things that Linda and Anne and Victoria and Stephen talked about on Wednesday, then yes, we need school.
I'd like to talk a little bit about collaboration, and we here as a panel would love to help you make these ideas real, designing new exciting learning environments as well as integrating curriculum. And so for inspiration, I'd like to just share with you a couple people that I've been working with. One in Singapore, Albert Liang, who is translating our curriculum into Chinese and Mandarin. And he has colleagues helping him in Taiwan, Malaysia, and he's starting a school. And this is his architectural practice. He's moving into education. It's very exciting. Maybe this will inspire some of you. And then in Japan, architectural colleagues have translated the curriculum and are now translating our videos to use them in Japanese TV. And we've also got somebody here working on Spanish for use in Mexico and Bolivia. So this is happening, and along with A4LE, we want to help you make this real for you and everywhere in the United States and elsewhere. So welcome aboard, you people out there, to this new model of education. We're here to help you.
Great. So now what?
Now what? These comments are terrific. Amy Christmas talks about human interaction, those soft skills. Boy, we're really getting that tested right now in this pandemic time, aren't we? So what is the new norm? I don't think we're going back to a new norm. I think we're going forward to a new norm. I think, that's an oxymoron, the other one, but anyway, that's another thing. But what should we push for in the new norm, and what are we learning from this pandemic that we could, what can we do as a result of what we learned through this pandemic that we couldn't do if there wasn't one, right? And so I think that's where we begin to start answering that, what is the new norm? And as I mentioned the other day, I don't think it's I don't think there's ever going to be there. I don't think there's never going to be a it. It's not going to be solved. It will be a perpetual evolution, and would require continuing conversation by groups like this at A4LE to keep it going, because we'll never be there, right?
And
Anybody
I
else?
also am on a lot of conversations with teachers, either art educators or science educators, and I love how the support they give each other when new ideas come out, or how to do something that a new teacher. So I love that whole community. And I realize that these teachers are facilitators, and they're creative, and they're continually learning. And so that's one definition, I think, of the new norm, is that we are no longer educated. We are always learning. And as we are always learning, then we have new things to introduce and new things to share. Someone wrote it here, Suresh, what we learn is collaboration, human instinct, this joy of discovery. And I think that has flooded back in with COVID because of the homeschooling and outside in their yard and being around their parents more, hopefully.
Look, it's not, I think it's like never waste a good pandemic, right? we, what are we learning, and what can we do? I've started, as probably many of you have, looking at re-entry plans, reopening plans for next spring. Probably we did that over the summer. We did some of that over the summer for the fall, which never materialized. But I was even looking for signage that would, help students understand wearing a mask, washing hands, keeping distance. And there was nothing out there that really taught students about what happens when you wash your hands. The little soap exercise that we did the other day. But where do those germs go? And how far is 6 feet anyway? Did you know it's like head to tail of a lion? I think there's a lot that we could come away having learned, even in a pandemic time. And those, whatever is next, the next challenge after this pandemic will be another opportunity for us to define that. It's just, we have to look for those silver linings and then take advantage of them, as opposed to, taking a step backwards into our safe zones. I think oh, sorry.
Are we supposed to dance again?
No, it was just, got the power. That was just our moderator's cue to keep on going. So, and I'll just wrap up with, look for the silver linings. This group is ready to do that. 89% of you see the cup as half full. So let's get going. So, so the next thing is just, how do we make this real? We've been discussing that for last 25 minutes or so, and I'd like to invite a couple of the panelists to give us their ideas. We've kind of prepared, a couple of them have prepared some great wisdom and insights. So Anne, can we start with you? How can we make this real?
Well, I gave some examples a few minutes ago about some of these foreign countries that are really picking up on some of the work that we've been doing for many, many years. And I would assume that this audience that we have here is wondering what we can do to make this real. And I think we just need to get going. The time for thinkers has come. I think our election certainly has shown a real need to have thinkers in keeping our democracy. And so
can I remind you of the word that you used yesterday, commitment?
Commitment. Yeah, make a commitment and go for it. And my commitment is available if you feel like you would like to have my book. There's a lot in there for architects to work with. And those charts that I showed you yesterday or Wednesday are very valuable and help the teacher and help the children and help you when you're doing acoustical systems, HVAC, whatever. Make it a learning tool.
I think Anne is trying to tell us that she wants to pass the baton, and she's asking everyone on this call to take it.
Exactly. I want to pass the baton. I've been doing this for 50 years.
For 50 years. I was about to say the same thing.
Yes,
And I couldn't I want to double down on my recommendation that everybody look into Anne's book. It's a couple inches thick. It's her life's work. I think there are 160 copies left in English. I'm so delighted to hear that it's being translated in all these other languages, Spanish and Chinese and other languages. So if anybody's interested in having one, now would be the time to scoop it up before they're gone.
And it's half price, half price.
Half price. Oh, that's gone. Wow. What an offer.
Never miss a good bargain.
That's right.
Right.
So let me,
So-
I want to take a minute to wrap
Stephen-
this up, I guess. Right. So first of all, I want to thank to all of our panelists, and especially again to our facilitators, Bahare and Ali, and also especially to Julie Williams and for allowing us or encouraging us to have this conversation to begin with, and to John Ramsey and Carla Cummins and all the other dedicated staff and members of A4LE who have taken this work on 24/7, right? I mean, we do this, we come to these meetings once a year, but all the work that they do to make all this happen is just amazing, and we need to really applaud that work, because without that work, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And because they're doing exactly what we're suggesting. They do have a commitment, a lifetime commitment, and they're making it real for all of us whose passion, leads all of us into designing innovative and effective learning environments all around the world. So I just want to thank everybody. We're going to stay in touch. Somehow or other, we want to create some kind of entity through A4LE that we can all communicate.
Come on, everybody.
Join us.
Stand up and
Dance.
do some dancing.
We're going to cut an album.
There's Stephen tinkling the keys. Brains need breaks, people. Stand up and dance.
Sitting and dancing.
Wherever you are, even if you
I
can't.
know.
I think they're gonna cut us off any minute.
I know, but I'll dance until I get to stop. Until I have to stop.
Victoria, where's your French horn?
Where is
Just a minute, I'll go get it.
Lily?
Man, you get to eat well.
Got my drums here.
Hey, are you doing yoga?